So we've got a ton of news that we're going to be digging into that's happened over the past week in Minnesota. It's crazy to think that this all has happened within that time. But first, we have two quick plugs that we want to give. First off, the Division of Social Equity is looking for grant reviewers for the Social Equity Grant Program. So if you're someone out there that's hoping to make an impact on people getting money that's coming from our cannabis program that's helping to repair the harms of the war on drugs, you can be a reviewer for that. And it is a paid gig. So definitely feel free to go out and apply for that. All the work is done remotely. Reviewers may be eligible for a stipend. And that next review begins this spring. So we're going to drop a link to that in the show notes. We really encourage people, if you know cannabis, if you know the harms of the war on drugs, it's important to have those people reviewing the process. So be part of that. One other quick plug that we've got is this episode comes out on January 14th, if I'm recalling my dates correctly. And January 15th is when the second round of social equity verification officially opens. So if you want to apply for a cannabis license as a social equity applicant, maybe you didn't get verified that first round many, many months ago, now is your opportunity to get verified before that first round in just a couple of months here. If you were verified the first round, you don't have to do anything for this. So this is just for people who want to be social equity applicants but didn't get verified round one. That opens tomorrow. So go and start applying for that. All right. Those out of the way, let's get into the big news. We've talked a lot about the director of the OCM on this show.
Who?
Aaron. No. Not that. Eric Tobble. That's who we're going to be talking about as the new director of OCM. Because earlier this week, we got notice from Governor Walz thanking Charlene Briner for her service and welcoming in the next interim director in Eric Tobble. I mean, Marcus, first off, what was your initial reaction to getting this news earlier in the week? Did you see this coming?
I didn't see it coming. My first reaction was, I wonder if, I know all along she said she didn't want this job permanently, but the timing was curious. Like, I was wondering, was she asked to exit now? Or did she just decide, I want to be out of here now? Especially with the trouble they had with the first round of social equity licensing. So I was thinking, this is a good time for her to leave. And sure, she handled a lot of things, competently, but I think they really fumbled the social equity licensing process. And that press conference I don't think that was managed very well.
Yeah.
So I thought, maybe they said this is the time to go.
Yeah. It was interesting seeing that, thank you for your service from Governor Walz. It listed out the accomplishments. And they'd set up an entire state administration that wasn't there beforehand. So I'm not trying to say that it's not an accomplishment.
Yeah.
But in essence, the accomplishment was developed an application process, set up infrastructure. I think for someone who was in the role for a little over a year, there's not a ton to point to as the clear leadership here was helpful. And I'm not saying she did a bad job. I think similarly to you, the office is set up. They're sort of moving forward. But it does make you wonder what decisions could have been made if there was someone different in that role.
The biggest fumble was the first attempt to hire a director. Yeah. That was such a disaster.
Yep. Friend of the podcast was appointed and then day later nixed. And we're now here. I think I have it on here. Yeah. So she resigned one day after being named in September of 2023. So we're now a year and 4 months out from the person they picked getting resigned. And something that I thought was incredibly damning is that as of late September, so it is a couple months old, but they had not interviewed a single candidate for the second round. So that means they're not really actively looking for a director. You can have the position posted. You can have people apply. But if you now, a year later, haven't even interviewed another person, and we both know people that got pretty close to that process, and it's been quiet. It's been, I think, disappointing to see the lack of leadership in setting up this industry coming from that Walz administration in terms of picking a director that actually directs.
Right. I mean, so in that regards, the office has failed. To get this far without having a permanent director, I think is pretty tragic.
Yeah, and we should say, not the fault of Charlene. Like, it's not because she has said, "Hey, I refuse to get hired by whatever." This sort of falls squarely at the feet of Governor Walz. Of, if you want a director, you just have to name one. Yeah. And I get you were disappointed by the first round, but come on, like, over a year now of nothing.
Yeah. So, yeah, they have over 100 staff, and I'm sure they have some good people. They had a great, community outreach director, or I don't know if that's her title. Like, Marone is good. They hired a great social equity director, Jess Jackson. I mean, I think Eric Tauble will, he's capable.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So we mentioned it at the beginning. The person who's taking over for her is Eric Tauble. So people have heard that name a ton because he's general counsel for OCM and has been since the early days. So many of the conversations that have been had with Charlene in the room, Eric was right alongside her. So I think what I've heard from people who are quoted in the media, what I've heard from people speaking on background, what I think we both think, there's probably not going to be any big change from having Eric instead of Charlene. Right. It's basically just going to be a different person at the desk, but probably the same decisions will be made.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's they should have tried to find somebody in the beginning who actually had a strong background, and especially who knows about the plant, who understands the science, who really has like a background with the industry.
Yeah, for sure.
That would have gone a long way.
Yeah, by the time this episode posts, but it's not yet out as of our recording, our good friend Dr. Clement Dabney has an article coming out in the Star Tribune talking about that exact thing. Yeah. The importance of having people that understand the role of testing in that cannabis rollout. The importance of people getting plants in the ground in that rollout. And having someone who comes from a health background sure can have value, but when they don't, seemingly in their choices, not saying personally, but seemingly in their choices, understand that part of the industry, it totally kneecaps everything we're able to do.
Yeah, yeah. So
should we speculate a little bit?
Let's do that.
All right, so this is our personal opinions, not the opinion of the Cannabis College, all that, disclaimer and whatnot. There's been the conversation over the past couple of days. Was this Charlene's choice? Was this Governor Walz's choice? And I think we don't know. I think if it was any other position, the governor puts out a letter being like, they did a great job. We've decided they're going to find someone new. Especially if they found someone like full-time to fill the role, I'd say this is probably just Charlene looking to move on. But I will say, like, stumble after stumble coming out of this office, it does beg the question, was Walz looking for a change? I don't think he got an Eric, but I don't know. Again, speculation. I don't want to put out there that, like, we for sure know one thing or another, because we don't. There's so limited information. We see the same press release as everyone else. But, yeah, I don't know. I wonder how Tim feels about how our industry has rolled out.
Yeah, I think he's not. I mean, it's speculation. We don't know. We think. For sure. We believe.
Yep.
We wonder.
Yep.
We
Personal
question,
opinions.
But yeah, I don't think he's prioritized the industry enough. I'm sure that he cares about it, doing well and happening in a timely manner. But like, he was distracted running for vice president, and like even throughout the legislative process, yeah, he wanted to get done, and he wanted, blah blah, saying the right things, but yeah, unless we had like executive and administrative leadership that really were like super passionate about the cannabis industry in Minnesota really thriving.
Totally.
That's why we've had such a a struggle to date.
Yeah, Governor Walz is willing to put out statements and tweets supportive of our industry. And I think if this were 2 years ago, I would have said, man, we have perhaps one of the most supportive governors of cannabis legalization, because we did. And I think now that we're on the other side of legalization, now that we're in the implementation, I don't think we have the most supportive governor in our country. I think, if anything, he's sort of left this behind as like something he just doesn't want to deal with.
Yeah, like it's going to happen. It'll be okay.
And from that part, that makes me think that this was Charlene stepping down, because I couldn't see Walz stepping in to say, we got to change this up, when he hasn't done a single thing since September of 2023.
I mean, one thing that I heard, and this was from somebody who had a close contact within the governor's office, is that when Dr. Dabbs was the runner-up out of 150 candidates during the first attempt to hire a director, that he didn't like that Clem showed up in the interview without a tie on. And so, like, something superficial like that, just,
yeah.
I'm like, you had somebody who has a PhD in cannabis, genetics and genomics, plant scientist, industry experience, young black guy who really understands and cares about social equity, and like he gets disqualified for like some superficial reasons. Like we had the opportunity of a lifetime, and it was blown.
Totally.
So yeah, it would be nice to have like people who really understood equity beyond the definitions that the legislature provided, and really comes from the cannabis culture to lead the office, but we don't have that.
Yeah, 100% agree. I've heard people float before, obviously Dr. Clement Dabney's name before as a director. I've heard people float Jess Jackson, the social equity director at OCM. Like, there are people that understand the power of that role and the things that you could do if that role was utilized in the way that the legislature set it up to potentially be utilized. But by having lukewarm support from the people that are really supposed to be running things, it leads to a lukewarm implementation. Where is that social equity we were promised? So far, it's just expungement, which didn't come from OCM, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that really like caused me to scratch my head and shake it a little bit from side to side is the way that they were gaslighting us, in response to all these disqualifications of the social equity license applicants. And they were just trying to focus on like 200 suspect applicants who were like zone flooding or
Totally.
like the shady actors that we've all been worried about, multi-state operators trying to put out fake or, real suspect applications. But they were like totally ignoring the fact that, when the teacher fails, like your brilliant quote in that strip article, when the teacher fails 2/3 of the class, is it just the students that we should be looking at? Or should we also consider that the teacher failed the students?
Totally.
Like, yeah.
Totally. And I get OCM, they have their job. They're there to help be that buffer to make sure, like you said, people that are from out of state, maybe trying to flood the zone, whatever, don't become part of the industry. But it does make you wonder of, they rejected a lot of applications and offered no support. I mean, like, we both know people. You applied for a license. Yeah. Have you gotten an email from OCM saying, here are the ways that we're going to help you during the next round?
No, I mean, but in response to the litigation and them deciding to cancel the first round, they are going to like do requests for more information in this next round.
For sure.
So that is an improvement in the process. But I feel like as somebody who read their handbook and their instructions and all of the documents that they required applicants to submit, they were misleading people, at least in terms of saying, well, if you don't have this, that, or the other complete in your application, given this very short time frame to apply for social equity verification and then to submit the application like July 24th to August 12th, that you can attest that you will submit more information later, if you're selected within the lottery to convert it to a license. So I think a lot of the people who applied thought that, okay, I'll click this box. I'll attest that when the time comes, I'll supply more information. Like they were misleading people into thinking that you could submit an application that wasn't more rigorous than they ultimately said, oh, we're going to disqualify all of you because you didn't supply enough information.
Absolutely.
When they were telling you, you don't have to supply all the information now.
Yeah.
So I feel like the OCM really was refusing to accept any accountability. Like, and they would, and like, to me, it's real suspect that they won't acknowledge that they made any mistakes. Mm-hmm. Like, they're trying to put it all on applicants, or like kind of imply that, oh, the legislature required us to do this and that. And like some of the condescending messages that I was hearing from Charlene Briner about applicants' failures, and then like suggesting that, oh, this social equity round was for the most prepared people. Why even have a social equity round if you're saying we're trying to get this for the most prepared people to deal with this highly regulated industry? Isn't social equity supposed to benefit people who may be less advantageous? Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, how are some of these people who advanced, like wealthy motherfuckers? Like, this is not social equity. And OCM has failed to like accept any accountability.
Absolutely.
So like, I was kind of glad that the lawsuit, like, yeah.
Yeah,
anyway,
totally.
Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, dude, I think you're spot on. Where if OCM had come out the day after and said, you know what, we rejected 2/3 of applications, but here's why. Here's the tools we're providing for people to fix it in the future. Not this round, but next round. Here's, X, Y, and Z. I think people would have been upset that their application was denied, but they would have understood this is a highly regulated industry. I tried my best. At least I have an opportunity to move forward from here. Instead, the email that people got was, your application was denied. You're not getting your money back. Good luck. And then to be told the reason you were denied was because you were part of the wave of zone flooders. When you're looking around and you're like, I'm one of one applying for this license. Exactly. I tried my best. I filled out the information. I read your guide. At what point is it not my fault anymore? And I think if you're having 2/3 of people get rejected, it points to maybe it wasn't the fault of the vast majority of the applicants, but maybe the people that designed the tools that rejected them.
And we had to take their word for it, based on the things they're communicating in their emails and on their websites and in these press conferences in which the media are reporting. And it sounds like they made no mistakes.
Yep.
Like, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, just within my own experience, like, they said we failed to provide a clear capitalization table, which is really, I mean, it sounds complicated, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's a simple one-page spreadsheet where you list your name, your social security, your contact information, and the percentage of ownership that the people on that cap table list. And we had 3 people on ours, and then the arithmetic is simple.
Yep.
You divide the 100% by 3, and the main social equity applicant has 65% of that. Like, that's the most simple elementary arithmetic. And they told us we didn't get it right. And then I heard about somebody, she said that one of the people on their application, they had an identification card. It might have been a driver's license or whatnot. And the OCM said, this person is underage. That person was like in their mid or late 20s. And they were saying, so like, I know there were mistakes that were made by the OCM, sure, and they refused to even suggest that there may have been some flaws in our review process. Yep. Like the way they were defending themselves, like, oh, we had 3 people who checked every application. Mm-hmm. Like, well, this is new to y'all too.
Yep. Yeah.
Like there's no mistakes.
I know. So the thing that you're quoting came from that the public meeting that OCM held for their advisory board, where Charlene talked about when an application was denied, it went to another reviewer. If they denied it, then it was a denied application. If they approved it, it went to a third judge to decide and break the tie. But what she failed to mention that you are perfectly touching on is that you have one reviewer. They make a mistake and they deny an application. It takes literally just one more mistake. That's it. It doesn't have to be major. And suddenly, now that application is denied because 2 people made a single mistake, which, like, I'm sorry, it's 4 p.m. in the afternoon. I've made 50 mistakes today. I'm certain of it, if not more. And I'm willing to admit that and say, let's fix things as we move forward. And for OCM to say, not a single mistake was made. We had a system that was perfect. And if you got denied, it was your fault is just, I hope that Eric has a different message. Let's have that as the point.
I mean, the thing is, we were hearing stories about attorneys, experienced business attorneys who had some clients who advanced and others who didn't. Like, how are these attorneys looking at 2 different clients' application packets and fucking up one of them? Like, to me, that's suspect. Yeah.
What a fun industry we live in. Well, so that was actually only half of the big news from this past week in terms of our cannabis industry. We've got another thing that we're going to dig into, but first, let's take a very quick break. Ever felt like running a cannabis business means running in circles just to get basic banking? Union Bank and Trust gets it. They've been helping cannabis businesses for over 10 years, solving problems like securing accounts, managing cash flow, and navigating regulations. No more jumping through hoops, no more runarounds. Just straightforward banking solutions built on trust, integrity, and performance. That's unionbankandtrust.com.
Hi, I'm Allie Mann, co-founder of Moonlight Cannabis, and today I'm going to talk to you about our 3 signature gummies, Crescent Moon, Half Moon, and Full Moon, appropriately named to take you through the cycles of the moon based on your dosage. All of these products are going to have the similar effect, just the level of how you're going to feel it and how deeply you're going to feel it will differ based on Crescent, Half, or Full, whichever one you go with. So Crescent Moon is our brand new gummy. It's 2 milligrams THC and 4 milligrams CBD. So Crescent Moon is for those who are very new to this, right? 2 milligrams is a very low dose. 4 milligrams of CBD will also help offset that worry or anxiety or paranoia sometimes you might feel if you just took THC. Half Moon was the one we launched first. This is kind of our signature gummy. It has THC and CBD. It's a 1-to-2 ratio because a lot of times when people take THC by itself, they can experience some anxiety or paranoia. And in our research, it's found that adding CBD can kind of offset some of those negative side effects that sometimes THC can have. So that's the point of having the CBD. This is the one I take every night. Full Moon is 10 milligrams THC to 10 milligrams of CBD. So this is for people who maybe want to feel the THC a little more.
Crescent Moon is a watermelon flavor. And how we come to these flavors is just flavors that we like. For Half Moon, we have 2 different flavors. We have strawberry, we also have pineapple. And then for Full Moon, we just have 1 flavor. It's a raspberry lemonade, which is my personal favorite flavor.
It's extremely important to manage your dosage. Start with a quarter, start with a half, try it every night. Don't take another gummy in 20 minutes because you don't feel it, right? Give it a good 2 hours, maybe wait till the next day and really document and record to yourself how it made you feel. And then you can kind of play around with which gummy and which dose of that gummy is right for you.
You can find these 3 products at Dabbler, Depot, THC, all around the Twin Cities.
All right, and we're back. So when it rains, it pours in Minnesota cannabis news. And this week with a 1-2 punch, not only do we have Charlene stepping down and Eric stepping into her role, but we also have that rulemaking process officially starting Monday of next week. And what's exciting is by the time you guys hear this podcast, it will have already started because it's now Tuesday. So you can go online and read those rules right now. We'll put the link to that in the show notes, and you can see what changes were made. What did they keep the same? Unfortunately, we're at a place right now where we don't know. But what we do know is what that process will look like. So that's what we're starting to talk about for a minute here, and then we'll tell people how they can make those comments. So rulemaking is a very exciting government mechanism where we take laws and turn them into the rules that make those laws function.
I'm on the edge of my seat, Tanner.
Yeah, it's not only do we have it's like one step removed from the fun of watching laws get made. Like we've both spent time at the House and Senate just watching people argue, pulling our fucking hair out. This is not elected officials, appointed officials, looking at the laws that were written by other people and creating rules on how those laws should go into effect, not as the legislators, but as the regulators. So they're not coming up with new rules. They're coming up with what the existing laws look like as rules. It's sort of like when I would take goals and turn them into objectives for my students. It's all the same thing.
So you're not, I'm guessing there's not a Schoolhouse Rock song for this one.
There actually is. Let's cut to it. No, unfortunately there's not. Instead, in essence, what this is people just figuring out what do those laws look like on the day-to-day. Fine, you say people are allowed to grow 5,000 square feet, but what does that actually mean in practicality? This sort of breaks down more of the where do security cameras need to be, how far away does your door need to be from other businesses, what percentage of THC can you have in your product? You know, there was a cap of 70% in the draft rules before. Will that stick around? You guys know. We don't yet. But they're going to release this draft of the rules, and that starts a sped up process where for the next 30 days, anyone can provide public comment on those laws. You can say, hey, I think this rule is good. I think this rule is bad. I think this rule is illegal. Any of those things you're allowed to provide as public comment. And that is public data. So if you're providing that comment, your voice is out there and part of that. And then a judge, an administrative law judge, is literally going to sit down, look at all the comments that they got, look at OCM, and OCM is going to have to decide if they want to make changes or if they want to keep moving ahead. Assuming they keep moving ahead, because that's sort of how things in government go, we can expect them around the middle of February to close that comment period and then provide it to a judge to review, which could take a couple days, could take a couple weeks, could take a couple months. But what they're saying is that the rules will be in effect by the time that licenses are given out in May, you know, knock on wood. But so we expect this to last until basically May. People providing comments, that being worked in, and then being reviewed until we hear for certain which way it ends up going. So, all that being said, if you guys have thoughts, comments that you want to make, you can tell us. We always love hearing your thoughts and comments, but you also can submit them to the Office of Administrative Hearing Rulemaking e-comments website, which we'll put in the show notes. That's the most exciting link we've ever put in the show notes before.
How can people connect with us?
You can drop it in our YouTube comments. You can send us an email. In fact, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of those, the episode description begins with a button you can click on to text us. It sends it right to my phone. It actually sends it to our podcast app, but then that goes right to my phone. And so we will bring that comment onto the show. You also can send a letter if that's your thing, or if you want to fax the Administrative Hearing Rulemaking Division, you could. 651-539-0310.
We are a full service.
That's what we're here for.
program.
What we're here for. When was the last time you guys sent a fax?
I've never sent a fax in my life.
I mean, you can do it through your phone now. So
Right.
I have faxed through my phone, scanned documents, which I sent to fax numbers.
Does it make the cool beeping sounds that actual fax machines make?
No, I typically have my phone on silent, which that's why the shit going off while we were recording was shocking.
That's how people know that we're doing this all in the first take. This is real. That's
One take wonders.
one take wonders. Yeah. So coming back to the rules, we expect to know so much more about what this industry is going to look like on Monday, and we're sitting here on Friday. You guys are there on Tuesday. We don't know enough to be able to tell you guys in a really informed way what those rules look like. But you can go and look them up. So look in that notes. We're also going to be having an event here at the Dabbler Depot. The date is to be determined, where we're going to be walking through each of these rules and providing people a space to come and gather and provide that comment publicly here as well. We really think that by getting the community together, just like during that legislative process, it allows us to have a unified voice. And rulemaking is different, but uncomfortably similar.
I mean, this is a big deal, though, for both the entrepreneurs and the consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So while it may seem like some shit that people should just ignore, I mean, if we really care how the cannabis industry operates in Minnesota, this, like, the devil is in the detail.
Oh, yeah. You think laws are hard to change. Rules, ooh, that's a process.
Yeah.
So, just make sure to go to that OCM rulemaking website. We'll put that in the show notes. You can get the link to those new rules. You can get the link to where you can submit comment. But then, of course, drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Oof. Well,
Big stuff.
yeah, big stuff.
Big
That was
stuff.
that was a week.
It's like, it's not a lot, but the things that we did have were, whew.
Yeah, absolutely. By the 17th, so like a week from today, we'll have draft rules and a new director,
Wow.
and that's it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's a big week for the OCM.
Well, that was a lot. I think we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break. When we get back, we've got a great conversation with Sydney Peliquin of Mini Grown, hearing a little bit more about her background and some of the products they make, and then of course at the end, our high note. We'll be right back.